So, if you haven't heard by now, I'm sure most people that are in the situation or are aware of the situation knows that the moratorium has officially ended as of today on the 31st. And the issues that are happening, and I'm saying this aside from most of the articles that I've been reading, sort of lead up to what has been going on, is the moratorium was supposed to protect renters who were impacted by the pandemic. However, there were pros and there were cons to the moratorium. And a lot of landlords, they voiced their um, opinions and they're being disgruntled about the moratorium because they were facing hardships as well as tenants. Many tenants uh, were evicted even when the moratorium was in place in some areas, in many areas, for other reasons. And there were ways to get around some of those moratorium. Some of the landlords found ways to hire lawyers to be savvy to get around some of those rules. um, and so now here we are. We have approached the 31st of June, and which officially it was supposed to end, but they as in Congress, Republicans, Democrats, didn't come to a decision or on Friday, and it failed. It didn't pass. None of the Republicans were in favor of it, and I believe Pelosi and several other senators were trying to work hard at trying to get further extension of the moratorium, but unfortunately it failed. And so here, to make it more of what's going on here in California, Los Angeles, there has been a really bad homeless crisis, and this is outside of the moratorium that was going on. And now I believe it has even grown even more so because of this moratorium ending. And I'm saying this without even reading these articles that, what I've seen living here in California, I've seen the beaches had a homeless encampment. It was growing. And it was also, I will have to be honest and say, I'm not saying that all the homeless people are violent, but there were some people that were fighting. You'll see people that are homeless for different reasons. Everybody's situation isn't the same. So let me be clear on that. You have families in RVs because an RV, you can just move that around if you have, I believe, if you have a hitch and you have a truck and you can move that around. I saw somebody with that not very long ago. It was a family. It looked like a woman. She had like 3 kids and she was by herself and she had an RV with a hitch. And she hooks the hitch so she can move that around. They can sleep in there and they can move around from place to place. And if it's a place where she can't be parked overnight, she'll move to a place where she can. And so that's how some people are living. Some people are living out of hotels. Some people are living and doubling up, tripling up with family members. And then these are, I would say you would call functional homeless. And then situations that are more extreme. You have some people living out of their cars and their trucks, and they have like a homeless car stop where people can spend the night in their cars safely without having to worry about being attacked or being told they have to move. But then you have people who live in a real extreme circumstances where they're on the street and they're in tents. And so, they probably go to the, like, maybe Big Five or a surplus store where they sell tents, military tents, or durable tents or places where they sell outdoor survival type of things, camping equipment, so that they can live in the outdoors. And you'll see homeless encampments on the freeways, under the freeways. You'll see it behind, maybe in not it's not just in Skid Row anymore. And then you'll see levels of homelessness where it'll be people with mental illness, people with substance abuse, a mix of everything. Maybe they have some other issues going on. And then some people were homeless because they just were behind in rent or because of the pandemic. They were living paycheck to paycheck and they were just barely making it. We've heard the rents have gotten a lot higher. And it's not just here in California and LA, it's in most of the metropolitan cities. And it's not even just in the cities now. It's starting to spread where housing is becoming, almost a, you know, wow, it's hard to come by. And it's unaffordable and unattainable for so many. Um, and so, just to be honest, there's some places that, well, even where I'm at or reside at, there had been in people before the pandemic started, they already had evictions because the rents were really high and it was hard to pay rent. And so they had this moratorium and it kind of halted people from being moved or told to leave. And so suddenly, I guess by not getting any rent from these individuals, they ended up having to leave, before they started to end this moratorium. So you'll see a number of articles here. They're from the LA Times, CBS News, ABC. It's everywhere. Pittsburgh, Louisiana. It's not just in California and New York. Now there's different cities, different states that have different uh, um, rules in place, or how long their moratorium is going to go, or when it will officially end. Now, the federal has ended as of today, and so I also saw Cori Bush, who she sleeps outside the Capitol to protest the end of the eviction freeze. And so that's just an hour ago that this one came in. And so I guess there's a video attached to it. Then there's an explanation of what's going on. There's a vacation, a 6-week recess. The House fails to extend eviction moratorium ahead of the 6-week recess. The national eviction moratorium is set to expire, which it has as of today. What happens next? So now, most people probably know about the moratorium coming to an end, but in different places there are different things going on. So everybody's place is not the same, and that, I believe, is also another reason why some people were faced with this, because when in the beginning, earlier on, when um, they mentioned rent freeze, people saw that and thought that meant automatically don't pay rent. And so some people wound up getting behind in rent just because of that. And so they were not reading all the details behind all of that, that you were supposed to pay rent, but you had to come up with at least a quarter or 25% of the rent. And then you would get like a 12-month time to pay once the moratorium ended. There's some rules you'd have to read. Every city's got different requirements. So the national eviction moratorium set to expire. What happens next? This is by Aaron B. Logan. And so this was on Friday. This was yesterday. Unfortunately, it says stop evictions. And I'm looking at this. So basically, it's also in Spanish. So alto al deslojo. Um, so yeah, I'm looking at it in Spanish. So a federal moratorium on rental evictions is set to expire Saturday, which is today, putting many Americans on the brink of homelessness as highly transmissible Delta variant threatens to return to normalcy. Threatens the return to normalcy. So a scramble by the Democrats in Congress to extend the moratorium fell short on Friday night before the House adjourned for their August recess, which is a whole 6 weeks. So the COVID-19 pandemic had fueled economic downturn. It cost millions of people their jobs, triggering a backlog of unpaid rent and utilities worth billions of dollars. So landlords who have borne the brunt of the tenant delinquency have repeatedly challenged the federal government's ban in the court. And so there were lawsuits as well. So the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention earlier this summer extended the eviction ban for an additional month, but said that it was intended to be the final extension of the moratorium. So the federal agency has said keeping people in their homes and out of crowded living facilities was key to slowing the spread of this disease, COVID-19. So a high court warning on any further extension and state and local governments' failure to quickly get federal rent relief to people in need has many fearing mass evictions, which is actually happening or has happened, has started happening. So more than 3.5 million people in the U.S. said that they would face eviction in the next 2 months, according to the U.S. Census Bureau most recent pulse survey from early July. So here's what you need to know. So why didn't Biden extend this ban? So the White House said that Biden administration would have extended the moratorium were it not for the Supreme Court. So in a 5, and you can see other people that these are other articles that are related to the moratorium. So they had a vote. So 5 and 4 vote in June. The High Court agreed to leave the CDC's rent moratorium in place until July the 31st expiration, which is today. So Justice Brett M. Kavanaugh, who voted with the majority, wrote that the CDC overstepped its authority by issuing the moratorium, but that the remaining few weeks would allow more time for disbursement of federal rental relief funds. And so that is also lagging. And there's been scrutiny drawn from that also, that the money should have been given out a lot faster than what it has been. And so I was reading about why the money's so slow, because they say that there are people that are kind of new and they're not really fully aware how to get things going a little faster, and there's some other issues going along with that, and so that's a whole nother issue in and of itself. So here we are here now on the 31st where they have ended the moratorium, but he warned that the clear and specific congressional authorization was needed for the CDC to extend the moratorium further. So White House said that Thursday that President Biden would have supported the CDC extending the moratorium, but the Supreme Court has made clear that this option is no longer available. So White House Secretary Psaki in a statement said that Biden called on Congress to extend the ban to protect such vulnerable renters and their families without delay. But what happened in Congress? Let's find out. Though the High Court issued a judgment in June, Congress did not immediately act on this. And so on Friday, it adjourned without extending the moratorium. The House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat of San Francisco, in a letter to colleagues on Thursday night, called it a moral imperative and imperative to protect both renters and the landlords alike. So Pelosi said that she was preparing legislation to direct the CDC to extend the ban through to October the 18th. In line with the federal health emergency, other lawmakers said that the ban should continue longer. Representative Maxine Waters of Los Angeles, which is a Democrat, on Thursday introduced a legislation to extend the moratorium until the 31st of December. And so Children and families are going to be on the street, Waters said Friday in a committee hearing. So Representative Kathy McMorris Rogers of Washington, the ranking Republican on another panel debating this issue, said the Democrats' efforts were rushed, and this is not the way to legislate, she said. So on Friday night, Democrats failed to muster enough votes. So one of the lawmakers' attempt to approve an extension by unanimous consent without a formal vote met with a Republican objection. And so how many will be affected? Now, this is where we're at now. The rental eviction crisis has improved since earlier this year. For many of the nation's 44 million rented households in January, estimated 9.4 million households they owed a total of more than $52 billion in unpaid rent, late fees, and utilities, according to Mark Zandi, an economist at Moody's Analytics. And so, as of June, some 5.6 million renters owe a total of $24 billion in back rent, and it said that numbers to that account about 13% of all renters. So in a typical year, 6% of the renters are behind on their payments, according to the American Housing Survey. So is there any more federal relief to help the renters? So it says Congress has allocated $46.6 billion to help landlords and tenants in the need of rent relief, but so far $3 billion has reached people in need, according to the Treasury Department. Local state jurisdictions receive money from the Treasury Department, but are responsible for setting up their own allocation system, slowing the process in many jurisdictions. So that's why it's so slow. So the complex web is challenging for landlords who have many properties across many jurisdictions. And so this is said by David Dworkin, the president and chief executive of the National House Conference, a Washington nonpartisan advocacy group. So they have to effectively navigate these state and local bureaucracies to get assistance, he said. So complex process is a disincentive for landlords, especially in a market where you can just evict someone and re-rent it, Dworkin said. So we need to recognize the interests of landlords and tenants that are unusually aligned. So Dworkin said that as tenants want to be able to pay the rent and landlords want to be paid, so paying the rent is an ultimate answer, he said. So connecting tenants with rental relief is challenging even for organizations as robust as Eden Housing. So Lyndon Mandolini, president of the Bay Area nonprofit, said the organization has helped more than 340 residents request of $1.5 million in rental assistance from more than 10 jurisdictions across California. So as of Friday, less than $200,000 has reached fewer than 30 residents. So the group has an army of people trained to help residents make applications. It's still an uphill battle. So this is Mandolini who said this. So if you're a small landlord, it's much harder to get relief because the processes are confusing, she said. So in a statement late Friday, Biden urged jurisdictions to disperse emergency rental relief. So there can be no excuse for any state or locality not accelerating funds to landlords and tenants that have been hurt during this pandemic, he said. So he basically blasted these programs to try to get them to go a little bit faster because now things have come to a halt where they have pretty much ended this moratorium, so they need this rent relief to happen quicker. So it says every state and local government must get the funds out to ensure that we prevent every eviction we can. This is Biden saying this. So a spokesperson for the Department of Housing and Urban Development said the agency anticipates more households will receive rental relief funds in the coming months, but that an uptick of evictions is likely as well to follow. And so nearly 300,000 households received rental assistance payments in June, according to the HUD spokesperson. So our effort to provide emergency rental assistance will prove meaningless if families are evicted before receiving their relief money, Waters said. in the state on Thursday. So this is out of the Associated Press. So this is one article that I thought was pretty good at. It wasn't too lengthy, and it was pretty good at explaining why things were a little slow. And also I heard too, language barriers were an issue. People trying to figure out how to complete applications and things like that, and where to go to. And people explaining things correctly, and then people who they needed more people to help out in these programs to help get people signed up so that they can apply for the relief money. Now, another pressing issue that I feel goes along with this is we've had an issue with housing, a housing shortage of housing and affordable housing, and then we've had homelessness already before this eviction moratorium ended. And so there have been complaints that some of the homeless, that some of the people that are on the street that have probably been there for quite some time, who might be dealing with a series of issues, if it's mental illness, if it's substance abuse, or if it's just, other issues, criminal activity had taken place, like fights, things like that on the Venice boardwalk. And a lot of the businesses are not functioning as they used to be because of the growing encampment. So they had recently cleaned up some things. There had been some debates and some scrutiny behind how they're handling the homeless crisis that was happening on the beaches. It wasn't, put it this way, the beaches weren't what it used to be when I was growing up. We could go to the beach, you really wouldn't really see a lot of homeless encampments. You'd see performers, street performers, people having fun on the beach and whatnot, and now the beach has become a place where you are afraid to walk on the boardwalk. You might run into people that are fighting, and you don't feel comfortable. And so that's what some people said that they had witnessed. They even went as so far as to try to see if they could build some kind of shelters, but the residents say they didn't want that. And I guess maybe it was from what they had seen, the activities, from what I've heard from some of the residents, say that it's criminal activity going along with what's going on with the homeless encampments that are along the area of the beach in Venice. Now, I've seen some of it myself. It has been scary, and you don't know what to make of it. You have some people who are homeless; they don't bother anybody. They're not abusive. They're not aggressive. And then you have others who there's fighting, there's violence, there's some things going on. But when you have people in a situation where they don't have anything, no food, and they're on survival mode, there's bound to be some kind of level of violence or something of that nature going on if you have like many groups in that predicament. And they're clustered together, and it's almost like what we once thought was just Skid Row, and it was designated to like maybe I think it was 6 blocks, is now spread in the LA region, and I believe San Francisco. I've heard things about that, from some friends that said they actually left LA to go to San Francisco, and they came back because it wasn't only the homeless issue in San Francisco that was bad, but it was also the poop. You literally walk on the sidewalks and have to step over poop, and then the housing was extremely high and unattainable to afford, and it was worse actually than LA in terms of the affordability. And so that's what I was hearing from some people. And so I know it's not just here in California or LA only. It's spread out. I've been hearing it happen in other areas too. It sounds like a mirrored situation that has kind of exploded over the years. So now, what do they do about the homeless? Now, this is the part that's really sad, but I guess because homelessness is not an easy issue to tackle because you have different levels of homelessness, different people, and some people you might be able to help while there's others. There may not be anything that you can really do. That person has to be wanting to and willing to do also. And if you have people that are on drugs, are they're not wanting to go to a shelter, they're not wanting to get money for food, they just would remain on the street. You gotta ask yourself, is this because they've given up mental issues or substance abuse problems so bad that they know they can't actually do the drugs in a shelter, they can't do the drugs around people who are trying to help them get off the street. So this is someone that rather do the drugs because the addiction is so strong. So there may be some other issues going on, other issues. So now people have businesses have been affected. Downtown says that some of their businesses have been burned because there were outdoor cooking and things going on, and some of the embers would come fly over and then ignite the somehow ignite the businesses that where they would have massive fires and it would burn down businesses and people would lose their business. Also next to housing, where people could lose their homes because you have homeless encampments. So now there has been laws to basically ordinances to criminalize the homeless. So LA Mayor Eric Garacetti signs an ordinance criminalizing homelessness following the city council vote in favor of it. And so this is by Taylor Simone Mitchell. And so I was looking at this as well. So the heat is on, put it that way. I guess he has this really sad look. It doesn't look like he's actually in a total agreement. But the mayor of Los Angeles signed an ordinance Thursday making it unlawful for people to sit, lie, sleep, or otherwise situate their belongings in a public right of way. So this is according to CBS LA. So the measure makes it illegal to sit, lie, sleep, or set up encampments near sensitive use. So these properties you'll find out in here. It says in other areas such as streets, overpasses, underpasses, freeway ramps, more as mentioned in the document and as reported by Fox News as well. So basically, it's like sweeping away the homelessness. Where will these people go? Because that's where most of the homelessness is. Like I said, I've seen it. Underpass of freeways, freeway ramps, and more is mentioned. Overpasses, areas like parks, probably in front of schools. So the mayor, they can't be in front of libraries and I believe like government or federal buildings anymore. So the mayor of Los Angeles signed an ordinance Thursday making it unlawful for people to sit, lie, and sleep, otherwise situate their belongings in public right of way, a law that will almost exclusively disenfranchise the unhoused population of LA, according to official actions. This is Mayor Eric Garcetti, and who had until August the 9th to act. So he signed a day after the LA City Council voted in favor of the ordinance, 13-1 vote, as mentioned in a previous Insider article. So the ordinance goes into effect 30 days from signing it. CBS LA reported. So Garcetti did not immediately respond to the Insider's request for the comment. So the ordinance restricts sitting, lying, or sleeping, or storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property in the public right of way. So the measure makes it illegal to sit, lie, sleep, or set up encampments within 500 feet of sensitive use properties such as schools, parks, libraries, and others such as areas, overpasses, underpasses, freeway ramps, tunnels, bridges, pedestrian bridges, subways, washes, spreading grounds, or active railways. And so the ordinance also makes it illegal to sit, lie, sleep, or set up encampments within 1,000 feet of or on a street, sidewalk, or public right of way. LA residents and organizations have posted their grievances and oppositions as well to the ordinance on Twitter. So, and they have made plans to camp outside of Garcetti's house in protest of this. So this is going to start a whirlwind of protests. If we didn't see protests before, which we have, we're going to see a lot more of them now that the moratorium has ended. That's another issue, and it's homelessness being criminalized and penalized. So what about the other 61%? Bowden asked, who he shared his own story of being unhoused during this meeting. And so some of those nights I slept in the car, some of those nights when my car was in the shop, I slept on the beach, and I cannot tell you how much turmoil is in your heart when the sun is setting and you don't know where you're going to sleep, he said. So according to the Spectrum News, I cannot tell you how demoralizing and dehumanizing and defeating that experience is when you don't know where you're going to sleep. So he said, the ordinance tells people where they cannot sleep, but it doesn't tell them where they can sleep. And so that's what it comes down to for me. So where can people go? Where can people sleep when they do not have an alternative, Bowden said. So read more about this anti-homeless ordinance here. And so reach out to the reporter, so Mitchell at insider.com. So there is an anti-homeless ordinance that is here, and I actually click it on it. So LA City Council votes. Because I think this is so important, and people need to be looking at this, because this is what's happening in our world right now as we speak. LA City Council voted in favor of anti-homelessness ordinance that would impact roughly 40,000 unhoused Angelenos. And so these are the things that people should be now looking at, and there should be no question as to why we're having more protests, there might even be an uptick in violence because of all of this. And the moratorium ended all at once together. So this is hell on wheels. And then we have this Delta variant that is spreading pretty quickly. And I read that it was supposed to be just as transmissible as the chickenpox, which that was leaked. It wasn't supposed to be told, but somehow it was leaked. So the LA City Council passed an ordinance that would prohibit homeless encampments in some areas of the city. So the measure restricts sitting, lying, or sleeping, or storing, using, maintaining, placing personal property in the public right of way. The measure was passed this Wednesday. It was passed 13-2 vote, but LA Mayor Garcetti has the power to veto it. And so that's pretty much it. It's very short, sweet, and simple. So I believe there might be more to it. So yeah, so that is where we're at. And it's sad, but I believe homelessness this is my conclusive take on this. I believe because of this national moratorium that since it had ended in some places and already there were evictions that were taking place and monies are kind of slow to go out and they're going out to some people and other people are still waiting, that this is going to cause protests. This is going to cause more upset. It's going to probably create more homelessness, and then you have this ordinance that's criminalizing homelessness, and there's this anti-homeless ordinance, is what they call it. And so it has reached the vote, and it's just not looking good in LA at all. And so I'm gonna let this video go. What do you think about it? I mean, you're gonna see where some people are unfortunately, you'd have some people that they're in favor of this, and without any question asked to it, then you have people who are not in favor of all of this, feel that they should have come to some way of trying to help, find, safer environment, or either a safer way to resolve these issues rather than criminalizing the homeless. And then this issue right here, this moratorium, they tried to seek extension and that failed, and that could cause some of these people to be newly homeless or be feeling hard pressed in the same way as to try to save their situation. And so, unfortunately, you might have people who are like, I was reading this one lady said she was $30,000 behind in rent. And it was because her job closed, and so I guess she was just only receiving unemployment. But she's probably paying a little of what she could. But 30,000 at this point, trying to get that to be reversed is probably really hard. You'd have to be completely dependent on rent relief, and so there are situations where people are like that. And if rent relief is as slow as what it is, I wouldn't want to be at this point 30,000 behind in rent at all. Not like this. Because that would pretty much put you in a stressful situation to where you feel like, well, I could possibly end up like these people you see, doubling up with relatives, or you're in a mad rush for money, which where are you gonna get 30,000 unless but rent relief, and now I guess they want to put a pressure on the rent relief programs to get this money out as quick as possible because this moratorium. And I would believe they're now trying to move faster. Those that they've already approved, the people who have already seen some improvement, they're probably going to get them out of the way as quick as possible, and then they're going to go to the next people that they can help as soon as possible within the coming weeks. Now, what I did hear is for California, to start eviction processes won't take place until October. So that may buy, for some people, that may buy them some time, depending on how far behind in rent they are. But what I also heard is, I don't know if this still rings true, that I did hear that every landlord is different, and what they'll work out with tenants are different. So some landlords might, I believe, it wasn't just up to the landlords. I believe that if you had back rent, if you have a relationship with your landlord, you talk to them, and they would give you a 12-month period to pay whatever back rent back that you owed, as long as you paid it back along with the current rent that you're due to pay. So I don't know if those things are still in effect. I believe they are. In some places it's different. There also might be some other organizations that are willing to help with utilities. And so I guess you'd have to look, for here, LA County is 211. And then they also have some other numbers, other programs that are helping people. With I think there used to be 311 and there's 211, where you can and then there's Housing is Key, and there's some other programs that are out there that help with rent relief or utilities and whatnot. So that's pretty much it. It just seems like it's really sad. So having said that, I'm going to let this video go. What do you think about this? It's really sad because a lot of people, like millions of families, are going to be affected by this if they haven't already seen this. Thanks for listening.